Anyway, let me try to explain everything I know, Quinn said as he grabbed the pencils and wrote a pros and cons list right next to Peter's name. Are you ready? The system asked. While the system explained the difference between a vampire and a vampire ghoul, Quinn would write it down on a piece of paper while explaining it out loud to the others. Why don't we start with the positives? The system said. First, unlike a vampire, a ghoul is not affected by sunlight. The system continued, and so did Quinn. Ghouls are stronger, faster, and can see better than a human, but their main strength is their incredible healing abilities. They are even more impressive than yours, Quinn. Broken bones, chunks of flesh will be instantly healed on the spot, Vorden said. Peter, this means we can just say you have a self-healing ability. There are a few of them out there, although we will have to keep it a secret from the school, since they all think you have an earth ability. Now the next bit of information is more for you, Quinn, the system said. Ghouls are most loyal to their maker. The main reason for this is because your blood resides inside their body. Unfortunately, what this means is you will need to supply Peter with your blood, otherwise his body will start to deteriorate and eventually will cease to exist. As long as he gets a supply of your blood, then he will live on forever by your side. What do you mean by loyal? Quinn asked. Similar to how your charm skills work, whatever you command, Peter will feel like he has no choice but to obey, although this does depend on the amount of your blood that remains inside his body. The longer he goes without a new dose of blood, the less inclined he will be to follow your orders. What about human blood? Will I need to drink that? Peter asked as he gulped, feeling a strange new hunger in his stomach. No, there is no need to drink human blood, Quinn replied. Actually, unlike me who gets stronger from human blood, it will not affect you. Now, time for the cons, the system said. Hearing these words made Quinn's hand shake a little, and the others could see this as he was getting ready to write down what the system was telling him. First off, the ability for Peter to eat regular food has completely disappeared. If he eats regular food, he will immediately throw it back up. Then does he just have to live off my blood then? Quinn asked the system. No, the blood is a rare thing and will hardly be needed. I would more often feed Peter just to keep him loyal to you, but still, a ghoul needs a food source, the system replied. A ghoul needs to feed on human flesh. The pencil in Quinn's hand had dropped onto the table and rolled onto the floor. Peter, you're not feeling hungry by any chance, are you? Quinn asked. I'm feeling a bit peckish. I haven't eaten since this morning after all, Peter replied honestly. Peter, maybe it's best if you sit down for this, Quinn said. What? Why? Peter looked at him, fidgeting. You're making me even more scared. Just sit down, Quinn said. But as he said these words, his eyes started to glow a little. Peter didn't know why, but he felt like he needed to complete the task immediately. After sitting on the bed, Quinn was trying to find the best way to put the bad news into words. I can see this is troublesome, so let me give you a solution for now, the system said. As a temporary measure, he might be able to last a few days on raw animal meat, but sooner or later you will have to grab him human flesh. He looked Peter in the eyes and finally found the courage to tell him, Being a ghoul means you can no longer eat regular food. You're going to have to eat raw meat from now on. Just then, Vorden and Quinn decided to head to the nearby convenience store to grab some things as a test while they asked Peter to stay in the room. Once again, although Peter was scared and wanted to come with them, a certain feeling was passing from Quinn and on to Peter, making him feel like he had to obey. As the two of them walked to the convenience store, Quinn was awfully quiet, which made Vorden suspicious that Quinn was holding something else back. Go on, tell me then, Vorden said. You could have gone to the shop on your own, but you wanted me to come along. It's about Peter, Quinn said quietly. I didn't tell Peter everything. Being a ghoul doesn't mean he has to eat raw meat. He needs to eat raw human meat. Raw animal meat will only work for a short time. Suddenly, Vorden stopped in his tracks. Quinn, I'm being serious when I suggest this here, but wouldn't it be better to just kill Peter? And before you say anything, hear me out. He's not the type of guy who can handle this, and if he gets caught, then don't think he won't give you in. He won't. He can't, Quinn replied. How can you be so sure? Vorden asked, a bit surprised by Quinn's sudden answer. It was hard for Quinn to explain, but he could feel the connection between the two of them now. Essentially, Peter's whole existence now depended on him, and as long as Quinn asked for it, Peter would do it. Well, I can tell you won't take my suggestion, but let me tell you this then, Vorden said. Taking a life isn't as easy as you think. Finally, the two had returned to the dorm room where Peter had stayed waiting for them. He was in the same spot as when the two had left him. That smells nice, Peter said. What did you bring?" They placed the raw steak out on a plate and put it right in front of Peter. "Is he going to eat it?" Vorden said. "I don't know, it looks pretty good to me as well," Quinn replied. "I can't tell if you're trying to be funny or what, man," Vorden said, with a disgusted look on his face. It didn't take long for Peter to dive in. His once dull teeth had turned sharp like a lion, helping him rip the meat to pieces, and after only a couple of minutes, the whole steak had been devoured. But the only one that got a good night's sleep was Peter. The other two were lost in thought. Vorden couldn't stop thinking about the fact that he was sleeping in a room with a cannibal. At least Quinn would only suck his blood, but with Peter, he might wake up with an arm missing. While Quinn was thinking along similar lines. "System, do you know how long until he starts craving for human flesh, and will I still be able to control him?" Quinn asked. "His hunger will outgrow your commands, but he will not attack you. However, about a time frame, I am unsure. Best case scenario is a week." "And worst case?" Quinn asked. "Tomorrow." The next day had arrived, and when Vorden had woken up, he had faint bags under his eyes. Quinn eventually managed to get some sleep, but he didn't seem to have fared much better either. "Didn't get much sleep?" Quinn asked. Vorden shook his head while looking at Peter, who seemed to still be sleeping peacefully away. "At least he still looks like a human." Within the next 2 days off, Quinn knew he needed to hurry and find a solution to Peter's situation. While Quinn was thinking about what to do, a knock was heard at the door. When they opened the door, they were surprised to see Layla there. "It seems like she has calmed down a bit," Layla said. "Anyway, what about him?" Quinn then went on to explain what had happened to Peter and how he had turned into a ghoul. When Quinn mentioned this, her face immediately dropped. "Oh, I almost forgot," Vorden said, as he went under his bed and pulled out a small bag before throwing it over to Quinn, who caught it. Quinn opened the bag and noticed that it seemed to be full of crystals. "You mean these are—" Quinn asked with a look of excitement on his face. "Yep, the winged lizard crystals you asked for," Vorden replied with a smile. Looking in the bag, there looked to be around 30 of them. Quinn couldn't imagine what the group must have done to be able to obtain this many. Right now, though, he had enough crystals to create a costume for himself. If he could use this to create a full set of clothing, then he would finally be able to fight during the day. Vorden could see that Quinn seemed to be struggling with something. "Just go do whatever you need to do," Vorden said. "Layla and I can deal with the problem. I have an idea anyway." "Are you sure? What about the others? Do you want me to pay you guys for these?" Quinn asked. "Are you joking?" Layla said. "Quinn, if it wasn't for you back then when the Dalki attacked, we would have all lost our lives. The least we could do is give you these crystals for free." Quinn looked at them one more time. "All right, just let me know if there are any problems. I should be in the VIP area just above." After that, Quinn quickly rushed out of the room with the crystals in his hand. Inside the second-year building, Duke was sitting down at his desk smoking a cigar in his office. "Damn, that True Dream guy is coming again," Duke said to himself. The door to the room then swung open as one of the sergeants with an afro on the top of his head and sunglasses came walking in. "Sir, I have brought the list of names that you asked for." "Let's see. Looks like we have a good mix of abilities here," Duke said. "And you've checked the background of all of these? There will be no complaints from important families if something was to go wrong, correct?" "Yes, sir." At the top of the list of names, one of the students' pictures was being displayed. It was a picture of Peter Chuck. It was their day off. Early in the morning, Quinn went out to meet up with Logan. He had left both Layla and Vorden behind to keep an eye on Peter. Quinn had told them that at some point, Peter would be required to eat human flesh. It could take up to a week, but it could also be tomorrow. It could also be as soon as today, Vorden thought to himself. "Come on, Peter," Vorden said. "Let's head outside." "Outside?" Peter asked, his tone slightly confused. "Well, if I were you, the first thing I'd want to do was to test out my new powers. Why don't we take a look at what you can do now?" "I think that's a great idea," Layla said. The three of them grabbed a few things and got ready to go outside. Just as they were about to leave, Peter stopped by the entrance. "Don't worry," Layla said. "Even Quinn doesn't burn under the sunlight. He just feels weak and sluggish. Besides, just in case Quinn was wrong, I brought an umbrella with me." Peter closed his eyes and stepped outside under direct sunlight. Just as Quinn had said, he didn't feel any weaker than before. He felt the same on the inside as he did outside. The group walked toward the park. They continued to walk until they had finally found a quiet and clear area in the woods that was devoid of trees. It was also hidden from view. This place is perfect. Besides, if anyone comes close, we will be able to hear them in time, Vorden said. What should we test first? Layla asked. How about strength and speed? Vorden said as he walked up to Layla, holding out his hand. Do you mind? Fine. She held out her hand and allowed Vorden to copy her abilities. The two of them then lifted a bunch of branches and sticks off of the ground. Just do your best to avoid the sticks as much as you can, Vorden shouted. Looks like not only has his speed gotten better, but his reflexes as well, Vorden said. But he's still Peter. Peter nodded when he was ready, and the two of them immediately started to hover the sticks up in the air, aiming to hit Peter with them. For Peter, it was the first time that he felt confident during practice. It was like he could see the attacks coming towards him. Just then, Vorden timed both sticks at the same time. Peter pulled his body back, avoiding the first stick. Then, the second one from behind came right at his face, but he still managed to catch the second stick out of the air at the last second, just as he pulled his face back. However, the tip of the stick still managed to cut his cheek, drawing the smallest amount of blood. "Oh, sorry, Peter," Vorden yelled as the two of them rushed over. But by the time they reached him, the blood had fallen to the ground, and the cut that was once on Peter's cheek was no longer there. "Looks like the super healing can be checked as well," Vorden said with a smile on his face. The next test they had for Peter was his strength. For this trial, they used a simple tree. "So, you want me to just punch a tree?" Peter asked, looking at it carefully. "Just go for it," Layla said. "You already know that you have super healing." "But that doesn't mean I don't feel any pain," Peter said. But he was also curious to see how much stronger he had gotten. He readied himself and looked at the tree, then pulling back his fist, he swung it outward. As he hit the tree, he had done so at an odd angle, causing his wrist to bend on impact. He screamed out in pain. When they looked at the tree, there was a large dent that had been made. "Well, we know you have abnormal strength, that's for sure, but I think there's a clear difference between you and Quinn," Layla said. "What do you mean?" Peter asked. "Well, let's say if Quinn was to do the same thing. Even if he didn't punch the tree dead on, his wrist probably would have been fine. I think that's because his body is stronger than that of a regular human," Layla explained. "While yours, although you have super strength, your body is still just like ours, made of regular bones and flesh. If you attack at full power, you will probably end up hurting yourself." As soon as Layla had finished explaining, the wristwatch on Peter's arm lit up. When he looked at it, he could see a voice message that had been left. "This is General Duke. Peter, Chuck, you are required to come to my office in the second-year building immediately. I have some important things to discuss with you." As soon as Vorden heard the message, there was no longer any need for him to ask Peter who was behind everything. He had already figured it out. Why else would the head of the second year have anything to do with the first year? The problem now was, how could he go up against a general of a military base? Peter asked as he walked back to the military base with the other two. "We'll follow along as far as we can go. Just agree to whatever they ask of you for now, and we can figure it out later," Vorden said. Just then, as they were about to exit the forest, Vorden suggested that Peter walk up ahead while they followed him from behind. "Peter, I'm taking my chances with you this time. I have forgiven you. It doesn't mean I trust you. Not yet, or maybe ever." Layla nudged Vorden in the ribs. "Give the guy a break, will you?" she whispered. She gave Peter an encouraging smile. However, Vorden was dead serious. They had finally arrived at the second-year building. From this point on, Vorden and Layla could no longer follow. Peter entered the building and walked into Duke's office. "Please, come and sit down, Peter," Duke said. "It seems the two of us haven't been able to talk since the last task I had set for you." Duke then went under his desk and pulled out several books and placed them on the table. There were 3 Earth ability books numbered from 2 up to 4. "Although things didn't go quite according to plan, you still held up your end of the bargain, and I don't want to seem like a person who doesn't keep his promises," he said, smiling. If Peter didn't notice it before, he could notice it now. There was something sinister about Duke's smile. Just why was he trying so hard to get rid of Vorden in the first place? Peter thought. Isn't everyone on the same side to fight against the Dalki? "Thank you, sir. Is there anything else you would like me to do?" Peter asked. We have a visitor next week, and I'm going to need you to learn the Earth ability up to level 4. In a couple of weeks, come back and report to me. You're dismissed." Peter then bowed down to the general before leaving the room. "Looks like I've been able to convert another one. In the end, everyone wants to be at the top," the Duke thought. As Peter left the room, he spotted Earl waiting just outside to be called in. "What are you looking at, dog?" he snapped back. Earl still hadn't recovered from what Vorden had done to him before the outing. Hearing those words and seeing Earl again, sudden images started to appear in his head. Unpleasant images. Very unpleasant. "Hey, I know. Why don't you wait for me out back after this? I and the boys have a little surprise for you," Earl said. "Whatever you say, Earl," Peter replied, secretly smiling on the inside. While the others were busy doing their own thing, Erin had eventually calmed down from it all. When she thought back to the image of the Dalki, her body started to shiver uncontrollably. "Calm down, Erin. Deep breaths," she thought to herself. While she was fine with keeping Quinn's identity a secret, she was nervous about covering her own back, and curious to see just how dangerous this vampire thing was. Eventually, that led her to the library. At first, Erin went down the non-fiction aisle to see if there was anything she could find, but there was nothing. There were no vampires, and there didn't seem to be anything close to describing them in the first place. This left her no choice but to head to the fiction section, and nearly instantly she found several novels about vampires. But just from looking at the covers, she found it hard to tell what vampires were. Vampire the Last Blood, Bite Me or Love Me, Thicker Than Blood. Erin decided to just pick up one of the books at random. She picked up the book titled Bite Me or Love Me. She stood there in the aisle and started reading it. "So, you're interested in vampires, huh?" a boy's voice said, coming from her left side. As she turned her head to see who it was, "I didn't expect to see a beautiful girl like you here," the boy said as he swept back his black hair. "The name's Fex. Nice to meet you." Outside the second-year building, out in the open field, Layla and Vorden were still patiently waiting. Peter had gone in a while ago, but now they started to wonder what was taking him so long. They concluded that it wasn't likely that Peter was going to come out any time soon. They had a feeling something might have happened. With that in mind, the two of them decided to stop waiting out front and started to head around the back. There was no entrance to get into the school from the back, but perhaps they could find some other entrance, either by climbing some walls or through some other means. When they got around to the back side of the building, they could see another student standing guard there. Using Layla's powers, they both lifted a couple of stones and threw them to distract the student. "Are you ready?" Layla asked with a smile. She couldn't believe she was having fun sneaking around and causing trouble, and with Vorden of all people. "As I thought, you do look a little cute when you're smiling," Vorden said in response. Peter was patiently waiting outside the place where he had suggested. Hey, Peter, it's been a while, hasn't it?" Earl said as he walked closer before, adding, "You know, lately, Duke has been blaming me for all of the failed attempts against Vorden, so I haven't been getting any rewards. How are you going to solve that for me?" While walking closer to Peter, Earl looked at what was in Peter's hands, which were the level 2, 3, and 4 Earth ability books. Although Earl was already a level 4 Earth user and had no need for the books himself, he could always sell them on the market to earn some money. "Hand them over, you piece of crap," Earl said as he slapped Peter across the face, leaving a red mark. Peter looked at the mark on his face. Usually, in a situation like this, his hands would be shaking. Earl then proceeded to kick Peter in the stomach before grabbing him by the collar and throwing him onto the ground. Peter was now in a space between two buildings, namely the second-year building and one of the storage rooms. It was a place that was quite dark, and unless someone purposely went around the back to find them, no one would find out. "Well then, isn't this a quiet little place for the two of us to carry on our usual business?" Earl asked with a smile. Peter then stood up and responded with a smile, "Indeed it is." After distracting the students who were standing by the side of the building using the floating stones, they were able to gradually make their way towards the back of the second-year building without being seen. "Come on, let's keep looking," Layla said. "There must be some way to get into the school. Maybe there's a pipe or something we can use to climb up to the windows." "You have been watching way too many martial arts movies," Layla said. Still, they decided to check it out now that they were here anyway. As they made their way to the space between the two buildings, Certain cracking and gobbling noises were made, as if some type of wild dog was wolfing down its meal. Finally, they turned the corner, only to see Peter there. However, he wasn't alone. His hands and mouth were covered in blood, while a dead body wearing a student's uniform laid in front of him. The student's body had parts of its limbs torn off. Also some bones with little bits of flesh still attached could be seen, and they looked as if someone had hungrily ripped the meat right off the bone. "Peter?" Layla said. "What have you done?" The VIP dorm rooms of the first-year building were on the 3rd floor. Quinn had decided to head here to meet someone. At first, Quinn knocked on the door, but there seemed to be no answer. When trying to push the door open, he was surprised to see that it wasn't locked, nor shut properly. "Hello?" Quinn asked as he crept into the room. Just at the other end of the room, he could see Logan in his chair. He had some sort of metallic tool glove in his right hand, while a giant pair of goggles seemed to be hovering over his eyes. Oh, he was just busy as usual, Quinn thought to himself. Quinn then started to look around the room at all the gadgets around him. He knew when Logan was in his concentration mode, no matter what you did, you wouldn't get his attention. But as Quinn was looking around, he spotted a strange object on one of the shelves. It stood out compared to the rest, because most of the things in the room seemed to be covered in dust, but not this one. It was a square-shaped device no bigger than a laptop, and on the top, it seemed to have some type of digital display. Inspect. A return portal device. When the correct access code has been entered, it will return you to the destination that has been preset. Creator, Richard Eno. Quinn moved in to take a closer look. It seemed to be the only item that wasn't made by Logan, and on top of that, it was a teleporter, but it was one that he had never seen before. The portal teleporters they currently carried were quite large devices, but this one was small and compact, as if the technology was ahead of their current time. Quinn reached out to grab it, but just then a voice from behind spoke to him. "Hey, if you want to get your fingers blown off, then please be my guest. Carry on and touch it," Logan said sarcastically. His seat was turned around, and he was staring at Quinn. "Then again, I would love to see whose ability is stronger, mine or yours," he continued. "Sorry about that," Quinn said as he pulled back his hand. "It looks kind of interesting. What is it exactly?" When Quinn finished talking, the robotic gauntlet that was one of Logan's hands started to break down. It appeared to break into smaller parts until they looked like little bugs. Then, the bugs went over to where Quinn was. They grabbed the case and brought it over to Logan. "The thing has been the bane of me and my family's life," Logan said, looking around it. "As you know, my family are originals who hid their abilities from the world. Before the war started, they were researchers who worked privately for different corporations, sometimes even governments, different armies, and all sorts of companies. Anyway, on one of their trips around 50 years ago, they discovered this device. At the time, no one knew what it was, and it seemed like our ability didn't work on it either. Of course, my family tried to research it, and eventually, when we discovered the Dalki technology, we found similarities between this and the Dalki technology. It appears to be some type of teleporter, but the question is, why would Dalki technology exist on Earth before they even arrived? Then that just brings us even more questions. Why did the Dalki attack us? Were they here before? But did we just never know about it? Hearing all of these questions were causing Quinn to think about it. "Anyway," Logan said, "it's not like I'm expecting you to know any of these answers. The one thing we do know is whoever was able to create a compact teleporter such as this is a genius. Oh, how I wish I could meet him one day." "Wait, what did you say?" Quinn replied. "Did you say you don't know who created it?" "Of course I don't. If I did, my family and I would have been chasing him for generations." This made Quinn sink even deeper in thought. Richard Eno was a well-known scientist, the person who had discovered not only the power of beast crystals, but also how the Dalki portals worked. Could he have known everything all along? Right now, though, this was too big of a problem to solve, especially for someone like him. He was just one person in this whole thing, and he had his problems to deal with. "Anyway," Logan said, "what did you visit me here for? Did you want to play the game again?" "Actually," Quinn said, "I was wondering if you could help me make a suit." "Well, it seems you've come to the right person," said Logan. "I can design you one myself." "Really?" Quinn asked, surprised. "Of course, it will be easier than making some of my other contraptions," he said, smiling. The two of them then sat down together. The crystals were placed in a seemingly special container while they were going through some type of melting process. On top of Logan's desk, a large metal sheet was placed. Logan then placed his hand on the sheet and closed his eyes. Just like with the gauntlet before, the metal started to break down and move, eventually turning into little metal bugs again. The metal bugs started to form a human figure until it molded something that vaguely resembled Quinn. The two of them continued to go through the design process, altering what the metal model looked like. Each time Quinn would give a suggestion, the robots would move in place. There was not much that could be done with the suit. It had to be black in color and skin fit tight. However, the mask could be altered greatly. When using the outfit and mask, Quinn wanted to strike fear into his opponent's hearts. He wanted something quite scary looking. They went through several designs until it was finally done. "It's amazing," Quinn said as he walked over to it and started to stroke the model. The black suit was skin tight, but had a scaled pattern like that of a snake throughout its entire surface. However, there were a few design touches added to it from Logan that Quinn hadn't asked for. "Do you like the additions that I made?" Logan asked. On the forearms going up to the shoulder, 3 red claw-like marks could be seen on both sides. Although it looked nice, Quinn was hoping for the suit to be all black. If he was also to use this at night, he probably would have been seen. Nevertheless, when he looked at Logan's bags and his tired face, he found it hard to say no. "It's great," Quinn replied. "Now, I do have to warn you, although expensive metals were used when making this, there is a limit to how much it can endure," Logan explained. "They were only basic tier crystals after all. It will fare well against intermediate weapons, but anything stronger than that and it will tear apart." Quinn made sure to make a note of that since it would be the same while facing beasts. If he was fighting during the day, he would be sure to pick and choose his opponents. Although suddenly, Quinn's body started to feel a strange sensation. It was a similar feeling to when he consumed blood, only a tad different. His eyes started to glow once again. A strange power was surging through his body. "What the hell is happening?" Quinn thought. "Hey, are you okay?" Logan said. "Do you need me to go get a doctor or something?" As Logan stood in front of Quinn, he could see the color in his eyes change, and even Logan stepped back a bit. At the same time, little metallic bugs started to come over and built a metallic suit of their own over his body. Eventually, the bugs had completely formed a metallic suit that looked like that of a small mech suit, only without all the clunky parts and more in line with the shape of a human. These were all precautions that Logan took just in case Quinn was to go out of control. But then, the feeling died down, and his eyes returned to normal, but a message had appeared. "A family member has grown stronger."
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.